December 21st is the 1-month anniversary of Polymino being released on Steam Early Access, and in this video I want to do a bit of a retrospective on how Polymino's evolved over that time and talk about my plans for the next update. By the way, December 21st also happens to be the first day of the Steam Winter Sale and Polymino's 40% off. But enough about that, let's cut to the chase. To start, I'll quickly recap the part of my last video about the changes I made right before Early Access. So a few weeks before Early Access, I gave Steam keys for the game to a few of my friends, and it really helped me iron out some of the game's issues. The biggest problem was basically two issues in one. It didn't feel like you earned points fast enough, while the difficulty increased too quickly, every 10,000 points to be exact. And to make matters worse, because the difficulty always increased by 1 every 10,000 points regardless of starting difficulty, the best way to get a high score was by starting at a low difficulty, which felt slow and boring for skilled players. So I made a few changes. To increase the number of points earned, I made it so your points are multiplied by the difficulty you're on, resulting in you earning points faster and faster as the game gets harder. I also switched to using fixed points thresholds for each difficulty. If you start in a higher difficulty, the points thresholds for lower ones don't matter to you. For example, you could start at difficulty 1, climb through all of the difficulties, and when you earn 250,000 points you'll be at difficulty 10. Or you could start at difficulty 9 and your difficulty won't change until you hit the same milestone. So now skilled players could start at a more challenging level, and they were encouraged to by the higher score multiplier. The last important thing is that I doubled the number of points required to earn a bomb from 5,000 to 10,000. Obviously bombs were still earned faster overall since the difficulty multiplier went way higher than 2, but I also limited it to only earning up to 100 bombs per game, encouraging players to save them for higher difficulties with higher score multipliers. Overall, what I had in mind was that players start on a difficulty from 1 to 10, use as few bombs as possible until they reach difficulty 20, then use all their bombs to earn as many points as possible. After these changes, my personal high score shot up from 200,000 to 1.8 million, and as someone who'd obviously been playing the game a lot to test it, this update really felt like a breath of fresh air. With how major of a change it was, I decided that this would be version 0.2 of the game, and everything before it was 0.1, and with that I published the game to Early Access. Right after releasing the game, I got back to implementing the reward for a secret achievement, but it ended up being a much bigger undertaking than I was expecting, and I was struggling with it quite a bit, so I ended up taking a break for a few days. But then a viewer of my previous YouTube video joined the Discord server with a ton of suggestions, and I was more fired up than ever to get back to working on it. So over the course of the next 4 or so days, I went on an absolute productivity spree, culminating in version 0.3 of the game. Delayed autoshift was added to make the controls much more precise. Autoshift is when you hold a directional button down and the cursor moves automatically. Delayed autoshift simply adds some extra delay before the autoshift begins, making it easy to do single taps while still having your autoshift set very fast. Since it's no longer meta to start on a low difficulty, any difficulty you reach is now unlocked as a starting difficulty instead of limiting the starting difficulty to 10. A new control was added to force the next junk piece to drop, reducing the amount of time the player spends waiting. An outline was added when you hold down the bomb button so you know exactly which blocks the bomb will take out. And finally, I finished adding that secret achievement, and with that, Polymino's first major post-release update was complete. With 0.2 pumping up your ability to earn points and bombs, and 0.3 refining the gameplay experience further, Polymino was in better shape than ever. Surely there could be no unintended consequences for making it possible to start at the highest difficulty with the highest score multiplier and see exactly how to use the bombs in the most optimal way possible. Turns out what I failed to realize was that players could start at speed 20 with the highest score multiplier and rely on the fact that using a bomb would earn enough points to get multiple bombs back. When you had to start at speed 10 or lower, you'd have to work your way up to 20 by earning 1 million points, which is also the score where you'd earn your 100th and final bomb. But now the meta was to start at speed 20, get a maximum combo, and then almost exclusively use bombs for the rest of the game. Before I started making any balance changes though, I wanted to experience the game using the bomb heavy strategy myself and try to get a score of around 3 million. And to be honest, it wasn't easy and it took me several days. So whenever I was in more of a programming mood than a gaming one, I decided to take care of some non-balance related tasks. First, I made another quality of life improvement, making it so you don't lose your combo if you perform a swap with no effect, such as swapping two empty tiles. Then I added some more visual feedback when using bombs in the form of a flash and some screen shake. Next up, I wanted to add a combo counter to the heads-up display so players have an easier way to tell what their combo is than by keeping track of all the floating numbers. All I'd have to do was display the player's combo value in the same way as the score difficulty in bombs. Should be easy, right? Wrong. Using floating numbers for the combo wasn't just a style choice, it also hid some of the internal workings of the game. See, if every time the player made a move we instantly knew whether it would make a match or not, it would be super easy to either increase or reset the combo accordingly. But what if the player moves a block into the air and the block falls into a position where it makes another match? When something like that happens, we want the player's combo to increase, so we can't just reset it when they make the move. We could look ahead to see if any matches will happen in the future, but what if the player swoops in and moves another block in the way before the match we predicted happens? Keeping track of all this would be a total nightmare, so here's how it actually works. Whenever you make a move, a counter is reset which will track how many matches end up happening before your next move. Whenever a match happens, we increase the player's combo and the match counter. When you make your next move, we can check the counter to see if your previous move ended up making any matches. If it did, we just reset the counter again and don't touch the combo because it was already increased. But if the counter is 0, we know the player's most recent move didn't end up causing any matches, so now we reset the combo. These mechanics are a bit counterintuitive, but by spawning floating numbers to display the player's combo going up instead of a persistent live counter, we can hide the weird inner workings and make it seem like the game just magically knows if you should keep your combo after making a move. But at the end of the day, I couldn't deny that a persistent combo counter would be really helpful, so I had to decide the best way to do it without dumping too much complexity onto the player. I started with the easier part, which was adding animations for the combo increasing. I expanded the animation system to allow an object to transition between two models, which I used to achieve this effect. Next up was how to handle resetting the combo. If the player's combo was left unchanged when they made one move only to be reset the next time they made a move, the counter would look broken even though it's correctly displaying the value being used internally. Instead, whenever that match counter I mentioned is reset, the combo partially fades out to indicate that the combo might be lost. If a match ends up being formed afterwards, the counter immediately transitions to the next value. Otherwise, the next time they make a move, the counter disappears entirely as the combo is reset. There was still one thing I didn't feel satisfied with, which was the fact that it might be confusing for your combo to stick around, almost implying that you can save it somehow, only for it to be reset the next time you make any kind of move. But this situation happened to align perfectly with another suggestion from the Discord server member who I mentioned earlier, making it so bombs can sustain your combo. It fits so well that all I had to do was increase the player's match counter by 1 when they use a bomb, and it just works. But wait, weren't bombs already overpowered? Well, I've jumped ahead in the timeline a bit here. Adding the counter was one of the first things I did for this update, but adding the new bomb mechanic was one of the last things, and it shouldn't come as a surprise that one of the things I did in between was nerf bombs. I spent a lot of time considering the best way to do it, but I ended up settling on a straight up increase in how many points you need to earn one. Instead of 10,000 points now it was 20,000, and instead of starting with 2, you don't start with any. This way, no matter which difficulty you start on, you have to be good enough at destroying junk by making normal matches to survive until you start earning bombs. And even after that, it's much harder to coast along by only using bombs and relying on them to earn you more bombs. I also removed the hard limit on only being able to earn 100 bombs per game. Now, once you've earned that many, the points requirement goes up to 100,000 points per bomb. Speaking of balance, I also addressed something which personally drove me nuts, which is that projectiles and falling blocks didn't get faster on higher difficulties, so the time it takes for blocks to fall out of the way can mean the difference between losing or not. And it did, many times, when I was trying to get through 1 million points. So another obvious change was making these things speed up on higher difficulties so players like me didn't feel cheated by the laws of physics. Another thing I did was rebalancing the Steam achievements, which hadn't even been touched since before 0.2. Needless to say, they were pretty out of whack by now. By this point, version 0.4 was already shaping up to be a bigger update than 0.3, and I haven't even gone into the changes I made which were completely internal. I don't want to get too technical here, but spending days on tasks where there's no difference in-game made it feel like I was taking forever to finish the update, but to my surprise, by the time I released version 0.4, it hadn't even been a month since early access started. And that brings us to today. So what are my plans for version 0.5? Versus mode. It's the most common request I've gotten, and I'm personally excited for it too because of the potential for a lot of new and unique game mechanics. And if you join the Discord server, you'll get the chance to playtest it before it's released. By using Steam Remote Play, I can host playtesting with an unreleased build of the game, and anyone with a controller can join in. So whether you own the game or not, get in that Discord server, and if you do want to get your hands on a copy, like I said, it's currently 40% off for the Steam Winter Sale, and I really appreciate everyone who buys it because you're directly supporting me developing it. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time.